Hi, welcome back to my video training series, Are Sales Wounds Stopping You from Achieving Your Goals? My name is Julia Kline. In this video, we are talking about sales wound number 5, the prostitution wound. As I said at the beginning of this video series, this wound is by far the darkest. And because of that, I feel the need to offer a trigger warning right now. If you are somebody who feels deeply resentful about the things that you have ever been forced to do or that others have been because of systems that are broken or unequal or prejudiced or toxic or whatever, then please listen to this next bit of video with a little bit of caution. The core self-limiting belief of the prostitution wound is, I love what I do for a living, and I know that my products and services really help people, but my industry is so fundamentally flawed that the only way for me to get paid or to be successful or to get hired is to sell myself out in gross, demeaning, despicable ways. This wound is unique in that it isn't driven by fear. If you're suffering from the prostitution wound, any fears that you might have had about not succeeding or not feeling good enough, which, by the way, would have actually been manifest as an anti-selling wound or as a money wound, have morphed into a bitter, determined resentment. You have adopted a clear-eyed practicality about what you think you want to accomplish and what you think you need to do in order to get there. The primary symptom of the prostitution wound is that the sales activities you're engaging in leave you feeling as though you need to go take a shower. And the main difference between that and an anti-selling wound, in which you also feel a strong distaste for this act of selling stuff, is that with the anti-selling wound, you avoid doing those things that gross you out. Whereas with the prostitution wound, regardless of how they make you feel, you're doing them. Similarly, there is an important distinction between the prostitution wound and the selling wound. And that is, with the selling wound, you feel as though you have some level of choice. You are acting with some degree of personal power. Whereas with the prostitution wound, you feel trapped in some way. Either you don't have any choice at all, or you aren't able to see any desirable choices for the situation that you're in. The best way to illustrate the symptoms of the prostitution wound is with a couple of examples. Example number 1. I once worked with a woman who was a childhood speech pathologist, whose work was to help little kids with hearing and language difficulties learn to communicate better. It's really noble work, right? The problem is that due to the bureaucracy of our healthcare system here in the United States, most of her clients and patients had to pay for her services out of pocket, especially after the first couple of appointments that they had with her. So she found herself in a position of having to turn away kids and their parents who desperately needed her help, but who just couldn't afford to pay for it out of pocket. This broke her heart, and she decided to address the problem by reducing her rates more and more and more, until finally she was literally working 60 hours a week serving clients and yet relying upon government services to meet her own basic living expenses. In other words, she was prostituting herself. She saw people who desperately needed her services she loved to give and knew she was really good at. And also there was a system that was deeply broken, and it wasn't going to help them get the help that they needed. So she decided, with a great degree of resentment and disdain for the service, the system, mind you, that she would just sacrifice her own well-being, almost like a martyr, to the injustice of her industry. A very different example is a woman who worked for a marketing agency, and she described her work there as that of being a marketing whore. She said that her job was to provide borderline fraudulent products and services that really didn't help anybody, but because she was really super good at it, she got big bonuses. And the lure of that job, obviously, was that she enjoyed the high level of income that she was making, even though she felt absolutely disgusted with herself about what she had to do to earn it. What made this a prostitution wound is that not only did she think it was the only way that she could earn this amount of money, she also told herself that she was a marketing whore. Again, these are her words, not mine. And what that meant to her was she was interchangeable. If she quit, The agency wouldn't stop doing what they were doing. They would just hire someone else in her place to screw their customers. So how does this wound affect salesmanship or your professional aspirations? Like with the selling wound, people suffering from the prostitution wound are often doing quite well in terms of accomplishing their goals because they're very practical and clear-eyed and determined to do what they need to do. But what's suffering for people with the prostitution wound is their soul. How would you feel if you were doing demeaning, degrading acts on a regular basis just so that you can engage in the work that you otherwise love to do? They're getting to do this work that they love, yes, but they're paying much too high of a price for it. Or in some cases, people suffer from a flip-flopped manifestation of the prostitution wound, which is basically, I can't follow my passion because I need to earn money and I don't know how to make money doing the thing that I love. So instead, I need to do this thing that I hate just to pay the bills. So what is the master path of the prostitution wound? How do we heal from it? The real core of the prostitution wound is a failure of imagination. By that I mean you think that there's only one way that you can earn a really good living, or only one way that you can be successful doing the thing that you love. The thing is, that is almost never true. If you think that there's only one path to success, you are probably giving entirely too much power to that path. How else could you accomplish your goals? How else could you find an expression for your passions? Activate your imagination. Think outside the box. See what else is available to you. Refuse to surrender your power to that one thing that you think holds all the cards and demeans you and makes you a cog in the wheel and makes you interchangeable with any other whore that would come along to replace you. Because when you're walking the master path of the prostitution wound, you recognize that the greatest authentic power is within yourself. And furthermore, you see that any goal or any desired outcome that would ask you to sell yourself out or cheapen yourself or prostitute yourself in any kind of way is not a goal that you want to actually have.